Let's talk about interquartile range, measuring the spread of data. You may be familiar with the range of a data set. The range of the data set is one way of getting at the spread of your data. It's just the maximum minus the minimum value in your data set. But sometimes it's not a good enough measure of how spread out your data is. So for example, looking at this visualization for a set of data, here we can see the minimum and the maximum, and the other values Q1, Q2, and Q3 are highlighted. If you compare that with this other data set, which also has the same minimum and the same maximum, and so it has the same overall range, you might think, well, which of these data sets is really more spread out? If you look at the second data set, a lot of the values are really concentrated between Q1 and Q3, and it's a very small range there. So you might want to say that the second data set here is less spread out than the first data set. And the interquartile range is a way of quantifying that spread. So the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. So going back to our earlier example, here we see Q1 and there's Q3. So our interquartile range is this length. It's this distance from Q1 to Q3. In the second data set, the interquartile range from Q1 to Q3 is smaller. It's this range right here. And so we can see that the interquartile range is a way of measuring the spread of data, and that it reflects the fact that when the data values are more concentrated around the median, they're sort of tighter together, the interquartile range will reflect that. Let's look at an example. Given the list of 12 test scores below, what is the interquartile range? Well, first we have to do is find Q1 and Q3 so we can find the interquartile range. Those are the key ingredients for the IQR, interquartile range. So we could go ahead and find all the numbers in the 5-number summary, or we can just jump straight to Q1 and Q3. So there are 12 test scores in this list. So what we can think about is if we split it into groups of 3, those are going to be our quartiles. So Q1 sits between 78 and 80. Q2, which we don't really need, but we can just mention it anyway, it sits between 81 and 83. And Q3, our third quartile, is between 84 and 86. So because our quartiles are between two different numbers, we need to take their average. So our Q3 is going to be 84 plus 86 divided by 2, which is 85. Again, it's just the halfway point between our two values when we take the average. Q2, which we don't need, but we can mention anyway, it's the halfway point between 81 and 83, which is 82. And our Q1 is the halfway point between 78 and 80, which is 79. So now that we found our Q1 and our Q3, we can see that our interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1, which is 85 minus 79, which is 6. So that's our interquartile range.